1999. Nikki's obsession with the professor started before a single episode of The Parkers even aired. In an episode of Moesha that serves as a backdoor pilot for the Parkers, we learned that Nikki is enrolling in college at the same time as her daughter Kim. While the pair are attending orientation, Nikki meets the professor.
Out of my way, Heather Stevie. Good morning, Professor Oglevee.
Good morning, Ms.
It's Miss. No rings, no commitment, no man, just Miss.
So I guess I should check S under marital status.
You can check it, circle it, highlight it. You can even change it.
When the fall semester finally starts, we get into Nikki's daily harassment, often in the student union. An interesting note about the early episodes is that the professor is a bit more compassionate in his rejection of Nikki. In the episode Taking Tybo with My Boo, the professor advises Nikki that she doesn't have to come on so strong.
You know, Miss Parker, sometimes less is more.
Too much salt?
No. What I'm saying is, you don't have to come on so strong. You know, you're an exceptional woman who has accomplished a lot in the face of great odds.
Yes, I will marry you.
In these early episodes, we are also introduced to some of Nikki's previous love interests. Mel, Kim's dad, and Nikki's ex-husband, as well as Cliff Rogers, Nikki's ex-fiance. We are also introduced to another character, someone that will be yet another obstacle for Nikki, Veronica Cooper. Veronica is introduced to the series as Professor Oglevee's girlfriend, and they have somewhat of a tumultuous relationship, partly due to Nikki's constant interference. Veronica was only a reoccurring character throughout the series, and we only see her occasionally as she travels frequently for work. Veronica and the professor have an on-again and off-again relationship. One of the highlights being the professor proposing to Veronica.
It's an engagement. Veronica, I love you, and I want you to be my wife.
I don't know what to say.
Well, there's only one answer I need to hear.
Stanley, I'm not ready to get married.
And one of the lowlights being Nikki and Veronica teaming up to sabotage the professor's new relationship. In the end, the professor tries to make Veronica jealous by moving on, but it doesn't work, and Veronica gets engaged to someone else within a week, leaving the professor heartbroken. Nikki pounces on him when he is down, and she even moves in as he is too out of it to reject her.
I still don't understand how you got the professor to let you move in.
Girl, my baby loves me. I love you, Stanley.
I love you, Veronica.
You see?
He called you Veronica.
Veronica, Nikki, Nikki.
Wacko, wacky.
The professor eventually snaps out of his sunken state and returns back to normal, but jealousy would soon be knocking at his door.
Sorry, Professor, but I got a man.
But I love you. That's right, you heard me. I'm in love with Nikki Parker.
But Nikki Parker don't love you.
As you can see, 2001 was really wild, and for several reasons. But the biggest event of the year was that we finally got introduced to a solid love interest for Nikki, Kenny Davis. At the same time, the professor has a new love interest who is also his boss, the dean of students, Tony Ross. As usual, Nikki makes it her business to scare her off, but the professor is able to do damage control. Kenny is an old friend of the professor, and when Nikki rejects him, he makes it his mission to win her affection. When Nikki learns that Kenny only went out with her to maintain his reputation, she is hurt, but she forgives him and he promises that he genuinely likes her. The professor is jealous of the relationship Kenny and Nikki share. The professor tries to continue his relationship with Tony, but he is now paranoid because Nikki isn't constantly harassing him. He goes to see a therapist who convinces him that he is in love with Nikki, but for once, Nikki seems completely unconcerned with the professor.
They asked for just one day apiece?
Hey, Professor. Woody, have you seen Kim?
No, I haven't seen her.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Woody, come here. Do I look all right? I mean, does my breath stink? Do I have any nasty food between my teeth or anything like that?
No, you seem the same to me. Pompous, corny the usual. Why, what's up?
The professor tries to get Nikki back, but he fails. Kenny and Nikki go away for the weekend, but Nikki realizes she can't continue and ends things with Kenny.
It's not that. Not really. I mean, you've been great. Really great. And my head is saying Kenny, but my heart is saying Stanley.
I see.
It turns out the therapist the professor was seeing was a fraud and actually a janitor, so I guess that negated everything, and the professor realizes he was never really in love. Tony takes a leave of absence because of everything that happened, and the professor is back to rejecting Nikki. After the whirlwind of the previous year, Nikki is back to being fully committed to her obsession with the professor. So much so that she has a lifestyle doll of him and attends a meeting for lopsided lovers. She continues to interfere with all of his dates and steals copies of his keys to his house, car, mailbox, and whatever else she can get her hands on. She also has no problem telling anyone that she is married or engaged to the professor. Adding on to his despair, the professor gets fired from SMC and he goes through a depression, leading to a drunken hookup with Nikki, which the professor immediately regrets. After experiencing some odd symptoms, Nikki finds out she is pregnant, and the professor steps up and proposes for the sake of a family. Veronica comes back and leaves her husband, but the professor rejects her as he is now committed to his family with Nikki. Nikki finds out she isn't pregnant and considers not telling the professor the truth, knowing he won't marry her otherwise. However, she comes clean and Stanley runs back to Veronica, but she is no longer interested. Nikki does help the professor get his job back though, which she uses as leverage to force the professor to go on a date with her. By the year 2003, Nikki is over the moon as the professor has moved in with her, but it is not everything Nikki or the professor dreamed of.
Woman, these grits are too hard. How many times do I have to tell you, add more water?
Oh, no, he didn't.
Don't you have something you need to do?
Yes, and I'm doing it.
We get here by a series of unfortunate events. When the professor has jury duty, he becomes enamored with Paris Walker, a gold digger who is on trial for murdering her wealthy husband. She's acquitted, and after the professor inherits $10 million from his uncle, he becomes her next target. The two are married, but it all comes crashing down after she tries to kill him. Nikki's stalking does pay off for the professor in this case, as she stops Paris before she is able to carry out her plan. The professor loses all of his inheritance due to back taxes, and because he got rid of his apartment after he thought he was filthy rich, he has no choice but to move in with Nikki. When the professor moves in, he treats Nikki like a doormat, but she eventually stands up for herself and he moves out.
You know what?
What?
Get it your damn self.
Do you know who you talking to?
Oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to. Now, I may be your future wife, but I'll be damned if I'm going to be your doormat. And besides, you're not that cute. Okay, I was tripping. You are that cute. Woo.
In 2004, the final year of the series, Nikki gets yet another love interest, Johnny. After Nikki is always tagging along with Andell and her new boyfriend Lester, they decide to hook her up with one of Lester's friends, Johnny. Initially, they don't hit it off, as just like Nikki, Johnny is obsessed with a woman who shows no interest in him, his poo Stacy. Despite their hearts belonging to other people, Nikki and Johnny develop a relationship. The series begins to wrap up all of the storylines for the season finale, and we learn that the professor got a job teaching at Weatherly University. And despite Nikki's blossoming romance with Johnny, she is still chasing the professor and hopes to attend the university as well. However, the professor continues to reject her, prompting her to try to move on with Johnny, realizing she has other options. Johnny plans an at-home Jamaican date night because he remembered that Nikki said she wanted to go to Jamaica, and he proposes. Nikki says yes, although she is still hopeful she will get her boo back. Nikki has the wedding at Andell's restaurant. However, the professor realizes he is going to make a big mistake if he lets Nikki marry someone else and tries to stop the wedding. Andell locks him in a closet to prevent him from stopping the wedding, but she ultimately confesses the professor now wants Nikki, and he gets to the wedding, and him and Nikki are finally married.
I love you, Nikki Parker. With all my heart and soul.
I love you too, boo.
And that will be the ending of the Parkers' 5-year run. It's not mentioned why the show ended, as ratings seem to be going strong, but luckily it seems the creators had enough time to wrap up the show and not end in a cliffhanger. What do you think of Nikki and the professor's relationship? Some people think the professor was wrong in his treatment of Nikki, but at the same time, Nikki did constantly stalk and interfere in his life. Leave your comments down below and subscribe for more content on your favorite shows.